Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of Friday Morning Live. I'm your host, Dave Newell. Welcome aboard. It is March the 5th, 2021, and we're excited that you come along for the ride this morning. Our special guest this morning is Kyle Ulrich, President and CEO. We'll invite Kyle in just a second. I just want to go through a few housekeeping chores that we do. Just a reminder, folks, we continue to offer many options on a virtual learning platform, either via the webinar or webcast. So this is our schedule for the next week or so, but certainly we encourage you to get online and check the education page of upcoming classes and some of the things we're doing here, including National Alliance classes. So, again, encourage you to jump on the FAIA site and check those out for your CE needs. Just recently, the governor's order was extended till the end of April. And so we continue to run the FAI Academy, the 220 Academy, for those that, as I continue to say, kind of take destiny in your own hands and convert your 440 to your 220, where you would have the ability to work outside the office without an emergency order by the CFO or the governor. So it's online. It's there for your viewing pleasure. We make it as user-friendly as possible. So encourage you to take a look at that or have staff look at that, especially over the next couple months, because once we come out of this, you don't know how many more times that emergency order will be extended. So this gives you a chance to kind of jumpstart that process. And again, we have this. We're going to be doing a lot more with the 2044 Academy soon. So this is a way for those that just strictly handle personal lines for your agency. If you have a 440, you'd like to convert it to a 2044, which is a all lines, personal lines license. This academy will certainly help you achieve those goals as well. Well, let's show a picture of our friend, Kyle Ulrich, who's been at the helm here now. He's been with FAI for 16 years, but September the 1st, Kyle took the seat at the helm of the ship here at FAI, and we're excited to just kind of reminisce a little bit over the first 6 months of his tenure here as the CEO. So good morning, Kyle.
Good morning, Dave.
So, Kyle, as I said, you've been around the campfire 16 years. You've certainly been ingrained in a lot of the decisions as senior leadership here at FAI. But now you're steering the ship. So let's just start off with a question about, has there been any surprises? You've been in that senior leadership role for several years, so you've been in those meetings, but now you're actually at the head of the table. So what are your thoughts there?
That's a good question. Have there been any surprises? Well, I would say that first and foremost, having been here for as long as I have, 16 and a half years now, and the FAI leadership, board of directors and volunteer leaders, put a plan in place that was in place for a long time. I mean, there was a transition period of 7 years between when they asked me if this is something that I would be interested in doing and the date that Jeff retired. So that was incredibly helpful. I had been really in a government affairs silo for much of my career here at the association. To have 7 years to start to see the association through a broader kind of lens and perspective was extraordinarily helpful, because I tell people all the time, I mean, people have, at least here in Tallahassee, people have a perception of what associations are, and
Right.
It's really nothing more than a lobbying shop. Like that, I hate to say that, and I'm not, saying anything bad about anyone, but by and large, most of the associations here in Tallahassee are a glorified, lobbying practice. And while we certainly do government affairs and advocacy work, and it's, one of the fundamental tenets of what we do here at the association, and always will, and take great pride in it. It's only, a portion of what goes on here every day. And, we run a business, and that's the way that Jeff has always looked at it. I remember it being ingrained in me very, very early that, being a nonprofit trade association is a tax designation, not a business strategy. And so we take, the advocacy work that we do for our members and everything else that we do very seriously. But there's a business to run. And, we've got 34 or 35 team members here at the association. It's a big team of folks. And so I would say that even though I had all of that time to prepare, and I felt like I was ready to walk in the door and sit down and go to work, I'm surprised every day. I think despite having, a broader understanding of the association starting out on September 1st, I still didn't have an appreciation for what the job was going to be on a day-to-day basis. I've told you and other officers and many folks on our team, I never really anticipated, how the day would unfold, and that it's, you go from one thing to another all day long. So, I'll have an hour call or a meeting on IMS, and then we move to E&O, and then we're talking about advocacy and political strategy and political giving, onto a communications issue, and then back to IMS again. Right. And so, there's a lot going on. And I think that's probably the biggest surprise. While I knew all of these things and was familiar with all of these things, I really didn't know what my day would be like on a typical routine basis. And it's been fun. It's been a challenge. There's no doubt about it. And, it's a challenge to run a business in normal times, but, right. Obviously never anticipated that the 6 months leading up to me taking over and the 6 months since taking over would be in the middle of, a pandemic, right? Which just is a complicating factor to both running our business and things that we want and need to do here to take care of our team members. But then how that impacts all of the things that we do for our members on a regular basis. So much of what we do involves, a social aspect and interaction with our members. It's kind of the nature of the industry that, our members and we find ourselves in. And that's been tough to, not be able to have some of that, social interaction that we have been so accustomed to. Now, I think we've done a really, really good job of trying to pivot, staying nimble, and continuing to offer, value to our members in a way that they have come to expect, just in a different forum and different venue, whether it be, the Summer East Summit that we did, taking the place of convention last year, or the Winter East Summit that we just wrapped up this week, that has provided, will probably between the two of them provide close to 10,000 hours of continuing education to our members for free, or whether it's the political engagement month that we just wrapped up that took the place of our traditional Capitol Days event. It's been a challenge, but I think that one thing that has made all of this so much easier is, one, the incredible leadership and stability amongst our leadership, our volunteer leaders, our board of directors, councils, task forces. It's been, an absolute pleasure working with Chairman Alexander, since September 1st. We have a great relationship. We talk frequently about all things that are going on here. And the board has been incredibly helpful, guiding us over the last 12 months during this time. They've always been there, and always been very helpful in guiding, the strategic direction of the organization. But especially in the last 12 months, having their advice and counsel on how to handle some of these things has been extremely helpful. And then, of course, I can't say enough about the team of folks that we have here at the association that are just incredibly dedicated to the mission and the cause that despite not all being here together, still have a fair number of employees that are working remotely, some that are kind of going back and forth, and some that are here in the office on a more routine basis. And, in my opinion, we really haven't missed a beat. And so, when you sit in the chair that I sit in, that I'm so fortunate to sit in, you can't do what we do without a good team around you. It's not me, it's everyone else here. So it's, there's been surprises. There are surprises on a daily basis, but it's been a great first 6 months. I look forward to starting to see some people in person a little more frequently. I must admit, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was a really good friend of mine who doesn't work in our industry, but traveled a lot, traveled as a salesperson. And we were talking about, what our 2019 year looked like as far as travel and so forth compared to 2020. And in 2019, I think I had like 96 airline, flight segments, and was, on the road for like 120 days or something like that. I think in 2020, I may have had 10 segments, and 8 of them were pre-pandemic, and probably spent less than 20 nights on the road the entire year. That took a little getting used to.
Absolutely.
But I will say, having to go on a trip here recently, I'm a little out of practice. I've become accustomed to being in the office, as I'm sure many people have been, or working from home, whatever your situation is. But I'm looking forward to the ability to, get back out and do agency visits, see our members, have events the way that we have in the past. And I'm hopeful that that's going to happen sooner rather than later, as I'm sure most people are.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I got out a little bit this week too, Kyle. Went over to Jacksonville for a citizens meeting, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what changed about renting a car, because I hadn't rented one in such a long time. But hey, want to encourage everybody, if you have a question for Kyle or you have a comment that you'd like to pass along, certainly type it in your question pane, and if we have time, we'll certainly address it on air. If not, Kyle will get back with you off air. But certainly encourage your questions this morning. But as we transition, Kyle, to something that you did for a long time here at FAIA, that's one thing you did. But prior to that, advocacy. You had to make a couple decisions when you first took the helm here. One of them was to kind of have somebody come in and replace, part of your responsibility, which was government affairs. So you decided on a BG Murphy, and BG's is part of that team now with Laura and some of our outside folks. But you're still over the top of that, right, Kyle? I mean, are you still, how do you, have you stepped back enough where, where do you play in that role right now?
Well, I suppose if you look at the organizational, structure and the org chart, then yes, I'm still over it. My role in lobbying, government affairs, political work has certainly diminished quite a bit. And really, I think this is probably one of the things that surprised a lot of members that I've known for a really long time, that when they'd ask me like, hey, how do you see yourself as the next CEO? What are you going to be doing? And, who's going to do this and who's going to do that? In almost every case, there was an assumption that I would continue to do the lobbying. And again, going back to kind of the traditional model of most associations, many times the exec is still like kind of the primary lobbyist for the association. There was really no way for me to do that. You can't be a part-time lobbyist and a part-time CEO of an organization of our size that has, a consolidated budget of over $10 million and all of the things that we do. You can't do that part-time. And so I had made the decision a long time ago that, although it was a difficult decision to make, that I would have to step away from the government affairs side. Now, I still spend a decent amount of time on it, especially the last couple months leading up to session, as we're putting together Political Engagement Month. And, we're talking about strategy for the laundry list of things that we have on our legislative plan of work. I mean, we have probably the biggest legislative plan of work that the association has had in, oh God, probably half a dozen years.
Wow.
And a lot of that is due to the property market.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt. And so that has necessitated, my time, while BG is doing a fantastic job. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for him, really jumping in with both feet and, trying to do everything that he possibly can. But he has limitations. He came to us with insurance expertise. He came to us with relationships and all that sort of stuff. But what he didn't have was the perspective of the agent. And so he's learning, he's picking up on it quick. The great thing is that Laura is still there. And Laura was always a tremendous help to me. She's an incredible part of our team here. And I think BG would say the same thing, is that Laura continues to kind of be that steadying, constant there in our government affairs silo. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm involved, but I have definitely taken a big step back.
Gotcha.
The number of calls or text messages that we receive on a daily or weekly basis on political contributions and campaign work and stuff like that. There's nothing that gives me more pleasure that when I get those, I forward them directly to BG and don't have to return those. And BG sees it as a little game. When I get that voicemail, I just simply hit forward and I text it to him, and he can't wait to see who the person is that has left me a voicemail about a campaign contribution. But yeah, I will continue to be as involved as I need to
Gotcha.
be. And there will be times where I've got to go down to the Capitol. That will start to wane pretty quickly because of term limits. There are a lot of members that were just elected in the 2020 election that I have absolutely no relationship with.
Gotcha.
And because of term limits and the way that the legislature cycles out, very, very quickly, I will become obsolete. I've got a lot of great relationships with leadership in the House and folks who have now transitioned over to the Senate that will be there for a while that I can certainly use to the association's benefit and already have and will continue to do. But over time, those new members in the House of Representatives, I won't even recognize names. I certainly won't recognize faces. And but from a strategic standpoint, I will always be engaged on how to try to get things done.
Well, you talked about the social aspect of insurance and our group specifically, and we had to make a tough decision this year to not hold an in-person Capitol Days, and we shifted gears to announce and have a very successful political engagement month. So just talk about that and how that you thought that process went, and are we looking to that maybe in the next year or two as well?
Yeah. So
in addition to Capitol Days, maybe.
Yeah, of course. So, it's one of these things that, and Dave, you'll know this. I tell our folks all the time, tell our team all the time that I think life is a matter of perspective, and oftentimes, too often, I think many people dwell on, change and the fact that it's a threat, or that I choose to view it as an opportunity. It's unfortunate. I hated that we weren't able to do Capitol Days. The decision was largely driven by the fact that there's really not public access to the Capitol, and so I just couldn't in good conscience ask 125 of our members to come here to Tallahassee and sit through an issues briefing and not be able to go meet with members of the legislature. And so what can we do as an alternative? My friend Cindy Webster for a long time has been talking about doing, some type of political engagement month or period of time where our members are tasked with meeting with members of the legislature down in district, pre-session.
Right.
Everybody talks about, oh yeah, it must be nice. You guys have a job that only lasts for 60 days. Well, session lasts for 60 days. That is true. But it's the work we do the other 10 months out of the year that sets us up for success during session. And so, given her suggestions and others, we felt like, okay, we can pull this off. And I think that we put together a really good program. And at the end of the day, we had twice as many people involved in political engagement month than we typically have here in Tallahassee for Capitol Days, which I think was a success. We were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, trying to figure out what the program would look like. I think we, laid down some pretty good programming that was as engaging as it possibly could be, given a virtual format. But between the issues briefing, hearing from some of our state elected leaders, also, panel with Barry and the commissioner, I think that we gave folks an awful lot of information, and it was in a format that allowed people that haven't participated in the past to see and have an appreciation for what it is that we do and how much it matters for them to be involved in the process. And so moving forward, I have a feeling that we will probably have some sort of kind of dual, virtual event ahead of session, during session, along with an in-person event. Some of it ends up being impacted by the timing of session, so we did this. So session started this week, and but every other year it switches between starting in January and starting in March. So next year it'll start in January. Well, doing political engagement month in December is tough. I mean, between just the holidays, our members 1/1 renewals, it will be difficult to pull something like that off in the month of December. Could we do it in November or earlier? Yeah, I think so. So I think moving forward, I think we learned a lot. I think we've actually got a survey out in the field right now of our folks that registered and participated with political engagement month, and hopefully, we'll learn from some of the things that we did well and some of the things that we can improve on. And going forward, there'll probably be a dual approach that allows for some virtual content for people who just can't get here to Tallahassee. And then also, go back to an in-person event where we have the ability to have some fellowship and time here.
Exactly.
So that's
the fried grouper and
the food's not bad.
Pretty good. Yeah. So, you mentioned it a couple times, responding to political engagement month, your conversation you had with Barry Gilway, Citizens CEO, the commissioner, David Altmeyer. Got a question up here about the property market. So let's talk about the property market.
How long is this scheduled to go?
Well, we may have to extend, but folks, Kyle's written about it a few times. We certainly have had a lot of conversation with a lot of different people in the industry about the current state of the Florida property market, specifically on the homeowners front. As I said, I was just in the citizens meeting, and that certainly took up a lot of airtime. As we lead up to the 2021 session, it's going to take up a lot of bandwidth up here. So, from your vantage point and some of the conversations you've had with not only stakeholders, but some of the leaders here in Florida in the legislature, what are you hearing, the potential?
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing is what our members are living every day. And that is pretty significant rate increases being delivered to Florida's consumers, significant restrictions on, the ability or options, really. Many carriers have made the decision that they either have to significantly restrict underwriting guidelines or, to some, extent, some carriers, not even writing any new business. And so, I always feel I'm always a little nervous, like talking about this, because, our members are the ones that are living it. They know exactly what's going on in the market. I think what our role is not necessarily to opine so much about, what's going on in the marketplace, but educate our members so that they can educate their customers about what's really driving this. I mean, I get asked all the time, what's it going to take to get something done during legislative session? And I think most people would believe that the natural answer is, well, you just have to convince lawmakers that there is truly a crisis that needs to be addressed. And to some extent, that's true. Um, but I think that it's actually a lot more important that Florida's consumers understand what's
Absolutely.
going on. Because, and this is not meant to be a slight on the Florida legislature, but any legislative body is really a reactionary body. It's very infrequent that a state legislature or the federal government is sort of like proactive and way ahead of an issue. It's typically reacting to various crises that are unfolding. And the Florida legislature is no different. And again, that's not a slight on them. It's just the facts. It is what it is. And so, oftentimes people are accused of like manufacturing crises in order to try to get something done.
Right.
This is not manufactured. This is real. And it's time that consumers understand what is driving the issues that all of our members are facing every single day. And, not to oversimplify things, but it really comes down to the litigious nature of this state and the amount of lawsuits, the number of third parties who are involved in the claims process. The claims process really should be a very simple one. I mean, you have a contract between an insurer and their insured, and each has made promises to do certain things. And in the event of a claim, you give notice to your carrier or you give notice to your agent. The company has the ability to come out and adjust the claim. They figure out whether there's coverage and pay what is appropriate. That's not the way that things go in Florida anymore. When Barry Gilway talks about statistics of, at one point in time, upwards of 50% of all of their first notice of losses that they were receiving, coming from a third party, many times 30, 60 days after the quote unquote event has happened. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. And so the more involvement that you have by third parties in the claims process, the more likely there is going to be a dispute. And it's been manufactured. It's unfortunate. I think we're plagued for better part of 7 years with, the proliferation of AOB, assignment of benefits lawsuits. The legislature acted in 2019 by really addressing attorneys' fees, putting some skin in the game for third parties, for plaintiffs. And that's had a material impact. I mean, it's had a positive impact on third party lawsuits. What we all thought would likely happen is that there would just be a transition to more first party lawsuits, and those bigger name law firms that you see on TV every single day are the ones soliciting individuals to file lawsuits against their company. So until we can figure out a way to take the incentives away from third parties to be involved in the claims process, we're going to be here for a while. And I think that so far what I have seen been filed in both the House and Senate will go a long way to helping to stabilize the marketplace. But even if we get a bill that passes that addresses attorneys' fees, maybe includes a contingency risk multiplier fix to the Supreme Court decision, maybe includes a SIBO Supreme Court fix, the concurrent causation, maybe ACV on roofs. I mean, that's the issue that we talk about probably most internally about some of the moves to actual cash value on roofs of a certain age. All of those things will be helpful. There are some that are, in my opinion, a lot more helpful than others. The attorney fee piece is absolutely the linchpin. If you can get something like what is being proposed in the House and Senate right now, or at least in the Senate, and it's supposed to be included in the House bill, it goes a long way. But even then, I mean, I also want to make sure that everybody understands the reality of what that means. So getting something passed will be a great event for the industry and for Florida's consumers. But you're still looking at 18 months from now, if not longer, for all of that to really take effect and cycle through renewals, and carriers to start to see a change in lawsuits and frequency and severity of claims. So unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I also want people to clearly understand that even with a legislative fix that is a very meaningful one, that doesn't mean that when the bill takes effect
Right.
July 1st, that all of a sudden the market will be back to normal.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we're here for a while.
Yeah, that responds to somebody's comment. Yeah,
we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
And I think you were telling me yesterday, at the Citizens Board meeting, I mean, what's their new policy count on a weekly basis now?
4,500 a week.
Yeah, 4,500
net new policies.
Right. And so, in all likelihood, Citizens policy count is probably somewhere close to 650, 700,000 by the end of the year.
Probably.
And so, it's no good. It's no good for anyone. It's no good for consumers, and it's certainly no good for agents because, that process, writing business with Citizens, is not an easy one. Having to go through the clearinghouse and all that sort of stuff. But there's going to be, many of our members who probably haven't written a policy in Citizens in 10 years that are going to need to start thinking about, getting their people trained up and, being ready to write some business there.
And we've talked about this. It's no longer the coastal area. It's the solo counties. It's the inland counties. It's in northeast Florida that's starting to see, some increases. So,
that's always where the volatility in Citizens policy count is, so it's like, if you look at their coastal account, there's really over time, there's very little fluctuation in the policy count in the coastal account. You got about, 250,000 policies or so, have for a long time since it was the wind pool. It is the personal lines account that you see all the volatility. The last huge spike was, around 2010, which was because of the sinkhole crisis. And we had 1.5 million policies in Citizens. 1.3 of them or 1.2 of them were all in the personal lines account because there was no availability in the voluntary market.
Yep.
And so, Citizens policy count is a direct correlation to the health of the market. That's just, it is what it is. And so, Citizens has been a great partner to all of us in the industry, trying to provide data to the legislature to show the severity of the problem. And it will continue to be a challenge to educate members of the legislature. But I think it's really important that our members do everything that they can to educate their policyholders on what's going on. And hopefully a lot of the stuff that we did for Political Engagement Month will help. We will continue to write about it. We're doing a direct mail campaign with a partner right now, Floridians for Lawsuit Reform. And, all of our members will receive some direct mail here in coming weeks that will direct them to, websites that have all sorts of information, petitions and so forth, that we would encourage you to share with your clients. And that way that Florida's consumers understand what's really driving this crisis. And at that point, if consumers are now reaching out to their members of the legislature, as constituents, that's where you start to see some movement.
Yep. Great point. And just put a bow on it. Citizens, we were told this week that just in the month of February, Kyle, they received 800 new lawsuits. Certainly don't know how that compares to the private market, but it seems like an awful lot of
it is
activity. So just one question that did come in, we do follow a lot of the industry. We certainly have access to a lot of information. And, one that came in the last couple of weeks, Kyle, and certainly got our attention a little bit more this week was, what's the current status that we're aware of with, Southern Fidelity Cap Preferred, since we sit here in Tallahassee. They've been a friend to a lot of our independent agent members for many years. But, things happen. So
they do. And, they're a perfect example of what's going on in the marketplace. If you look at the, data that is publicly available that I have blogged about and, we should have updated data here probably within the month. All of the carriers were required to provide fourth quarter financial data to the NAIC, and that goes to the department as well on the first of this month. So on Monday, they had all of their financial reports due. We should see some aggregated information within the next couple of weeks, and all carriers are suffering. Some to a greater degree than others. I'm not going to speculate on what may happen in the future with Southern Fidelity. All I can tell you is that they have put out a couple of notices to their agents that have said that they're not writing any new business, and that for the time being they're also not renewing any business. And I have been told that is because Hudson, who I think everybody knows, recently infused $50 million of capital into that company about 4 months ago, needed to take a pause. That was the direct quote that I was given from someone at the OIR. Needed to take a pause to make sure that the report that they gave to the NAIC that was due on March 1st was absolutely accurate. And so everyone that I have talked to anticipates that there will be, another announcement coming from the company here soon that will lay out how things are going to go in the future as far as renewals and the possibility of new business being opened back up again. But I have also been told repeatedly that that folks have faith that Hudson is in this for the long haul.
Yep.
That they are committed. I mean, over the last 18 months, they've committed $75 million of capital to the company, and regulators and others who are paying very close attention to this believe that Hudson is in it for the long haul. And I hope that is true, both for consumers, our members, and for, all the folks at that company. So as soon as we know something, we will certainly let you know. But beyond that, I can't really speculate as to the outcome.
Well, and again, folks, and as Kyle mentioned, certainly the community that we all share with you all on different blogs that we post, kind of keep following those. You mentioned the legislative session started this week, Kyle. It's it's kind of as they all do. It's a little slower the first week, but then boy, everybody hits the ground running.
Well, and it's weird, I mean, like the Senate isn't allowing any public access. Like if you want to testify before a Senate committee, you have to go to the Civic Center and get on a live feed that's piped into a committee room in the Senate, wherever, the senators are meeting. There's just no interaction whatsoever.
Yep.
The House is allowing a little bit more access, but it's going to be a strange year. Right. that really is, kind of completely dictated by some of the COVID stuff that they have to handle. I mean, the impact to the budget, this COVID liability legislation. I mean, that's going to take up a lot of air in the room. And there's a projected budget shortfall as a result, of our loss of tourism and so forth. So that's gonna in many ways impact like what session looks like.
Yep.
Not just from a protocol standpoint, but just from a financial and liability standpoint that the legislature is going to want to handle. So the legislature's got a lot to do. I mean, clearly there's a crisis in the property market. I hope that there is bandwidth. I remain cautiously optimistic that they will get something done without having to have company failures to, show the severity of the crisis. I hope we can avoid that. But yeah, the 2021 session is going to be different than anyone that I was ever involved in. I'm not going to be quite as involved as I was in the past, but nonetheless, it's just going to look different, like the world does now. I mean, it just kind of is what it is, and we got to do our best. Fortunately, we have a bunch of members who give us a ton of resources to be able to work with politically. And we'll be just fine. I mean, even though we can't get into the Capitol, we have the ability to talk to the people that we need to talk to make sure that we're representing our members' interest. And we have a great team with Laura and BG and our outside contract lobbyists. It's not going to impact our ability to influence the process in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Eric's got a great question. We're going to move this along, but we'll certainly get to Eric's question before we let you go, Kyle. I mentioned earlier that the emergency order, governor's order, was extended through the end of April, right. And it's certainly something that we have gotten a lot of questions about. The 440s being able to work remotely. Current law is you have to work within the four walls of the agency, so it's certainly outside of an emergency order. It's a little difficult to achieve that. So, any thoughts on where that may be headed in the legislature?
Yes, timing is quite good. I mean, our legislative plan of work has a recommendation that our board and legislative council felt like no change was needed to the Florida statutes. That the flexibility that is afforded to the CFO and to the governor to allow this during, stated emergencies is all that needs to happen. Now, I know that we have some members that may disagree with that. I know we have some CSRs out there that disagree with that. And what will be interesting to see how it plays out over the next 60 days is, BG and I had a conference call yesterday with Chairman Leak. And Chair Leak is a great, very thoughtful member of the legislature serving from the Volusia County area. Also happens to be the general counsel of a very large insurance agency. And he personally believes that the four walls requirement is an antiquated one, that it is from a time that has gone by and probably was from a time that had gone by well before now having 12 months of experience of
right.
Folks working remotely. And I know he has a desire to do away with that four wall requirement, still require the supervision component, but not necessarily have to be within the four walls of the office.
Gotcha.
We will continue to work with him. That doesn't necessarily align with our stated plan of work, initiative or goal. But I think that there are some ways that we can probably work together to manage that. And I'll be talking with our executive committee and board throughout session about other alternatives. But he is the chairman of basically the pandemic response committee, and they're tasked with looking at all of these things that may, in their belief, be antiquated, and ways to update the statute to better reflect the way that business is transacted, today and going forward. So we will continue to work on it.
Yep.
But it's hard to say how that will unfold over the next 60 days.
Last thing, folks, certainly on our website, we have an advocacy tab. Encourage you to constantly look at that. We have a lot of information. If you weren't able to join us for the Political Engagement Month, there's a lot of information that maybe you can read and get up to speed on some of these topics that we'll talk about throughout the next 60 days. So, again, encourage you to get on there. And if you have any questions, certainly send it to us, and we'll get you to the right area on the website. Switching gears, Kyle, membership. We've had our concerns about mergers and acquisitions over the last several years. We've had a lot of agencies that have spun off because of mergers and acquisitions, and just want to throw out a couple stats and then talk about some things. But since you took the helm September the 1st, we've added 91 new member agencies with an additional 10 branches. So those numbers, even through the pandemic, even through mergers and acquisitions, because we get notices just about every week, Kyle, don't we, here, with an agency that's been purchased or they consolidate under another, branch or main location, and so on and so forth. So we've been fortunate as an association to continue to show that value proposition of why it's beneficial to be a member of FAI, and so we continue to attract members. And that, folks, is just through February. We're into March now, and so I don't know exactly what those numbers will look like, but certainly I think the report Melissa sent us last night still shows some growth in that area. But it's just amazing. But since the pandemic started, Kyle, we've added 143 new members of FAI, which of course generates additional revenue, which generates additional use of our products and services. And so Folks, you saw something that Melissa Weaver, our director of membership, blogged on last week about the new member engagement thing she's worked on. But some of the things that we're looking forward to over the next couple weeks here at FAI is kind of sending members a report card or an engagement report to show them mid-year kind of where they are, in products and services that they utilize and benefit from as being a member of FAI. And a couple of those things you mentioned. E-Summit we just completed this week, the summer E-Summit, political engagement, the classes that people will attend, for CE purposes. So we're looking forward to that. And then along with that, product guide. So if you want to know, what services and products can I take advantage of being a member of FAI, well, that guide will show you what those are. And maybe as you look at your engagement report card, you say, maybe if I did a little bit of this or tried a little bit more of that or looked at a different market, maybe I can increase my score. We're always measuring ourselves, right, Kyle, especially
Absolutely.
in the sales world. So, talk about what members can look forward to as they review these couple documents that they'll be receiving.
No, I mean, I think that's a great introduction, Dave. I mean, so, we pride ourselves and we work really, really hard at making sure that we do have a value proposition that works for, all of our members, whether you're, a scratch agency that just started, that's a one man or woman shop, all the way up to a publicly traded broker, that we have something for everyone. And, we are just like everyone else, and that we are competing for a sliver of your time to try to make you aware of all of the things that are at your disposal here at the association. And this is just one more initiative that we're hopeful may, shed some light on the products and services that we have available to you. That, we understand that you're busy running your business and trying to renew business and trying to write new business. The idea that you're going to be spending an inordinate amount of time looking at the association's offerings, I mean, that's not reality.
Yep.
So, what we wanted to be able to do was, give you a snapshot of what it is that your agency currently does with the association, and show you all of the things that you may not be using. And, in a time like we're in right now where, we talk a lot about the homeowners market, but the homeowners market isn't the only market that, there's difficulty in right now. I mean, there's a hardening commercial market. It's tough to be able to find markets for all sorts of risks. So we try really hard, especially through our market access program, to be able to have those options for our members. And, hopefully the report card will give you, a snapshot, give you an idea of what it is that you're currently utilizing with the association. And then in conjunction with the product guide, you'll be able to easily kind of look down the list and say, I didn't even realize that you all had this program. Right. Let me do, a little due diligence and reach out to the association and find out, what it would take for me to get appointed with this company or this company, whatever that may be. Of course, we're always wanting people to understand that, we're also a full service agency that can take care of your professional liability needs too. So everybody knows us for Westport, and it's a great product that we have exclusive access to. But we also can shop the market and, look at virtually every other market that is available for you if Westport is not, the one that fits your agency. So it's just really kind of meant to be a gentle reminder of what you're using and what you may not be taking advantage of. And, every opportunity that we can take through different mediums to remind our members, what it is that we have here to offer, is something that we're going to continue to do.
Yeah. So folks, look for that over the next few weeks. As we call it, it's a mid-year report card. Some of your folks, kids that are in school, are probably getting those at some point. I don't know how that's working anymore from a virtual environment, but certainly look for that. So switching gears, Kyle, we just completed yesterday our Winter East Summit. I know there was some banter amongst a few of us in the office of why we were calling it a winter e-summit, having it in the month of March. But as we told our CEO, spring has not sprung yet, so we called it winter. But it was just a fun dialogue. But we had 680 registrants.
That's awesome.
For the 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week, Kyle. Tuesday, our first day of the summit, we had 860 participants in those classes. So we'll get the final numbers. Kyle talked about, the value that we kind of, provided as a member benefit. So we'll get those numbers out to you. But very successful, had unbelievable talent and content for people to take advantage of. So
I thought the lineup was great. It's yet another, way that, we feel here that we can provide our members best in class, professional training. Everybody always talks about CE, and yes, it counts for CE, but that's where we believe we differentiate ourselves from most providers, is that we are really actually providing you training, not just a compliance exercise that you can check the box. And so it's something that I'm really proud of, is that, at a time where, many of our members are still dealing with uncertainty due to the pandemic or due to the marketplace, that because of our sponsors that stepped up and were willing to, help us underwrite the cost of this production. In last year, we provided 6,400 hours of free continuing education, professional training hours to our members. And, I've got to believe that we'll probably provide at least another 3,000 to 4,000 this week. And so again, it's a recognition that we understand that, members are still struggling and still having a difficult time with uncertainty in the marketplace. And this is one way that we can help and bring value to your membership. I mean, it's free for members.
Yep.
If you're not a member, then there's a cost to it. And, but it's great that so many members have taken advantage of it and been able to get their folks trained, during this time. It's all virtual, but it's kind of the way things are moving anyways.
Yep. And then the last thing, we'll talk about the National Alliance. Certainly been a licensee for the National Alliance for many years. We've gone to a virtual live webinar platform since the pandemic came upon us. But, one of the things that I think maybe some on this call know and some don't know, but, we're very fortunate. We do have a good relationship with the National Alliance. And with your leadership, Kyle, we've been able to do some things from a cost standpoint for a member versus non-member benefit. So those that are on this call, you're members of ours, and we're glad you're here. But there was something that we were able to do with the National Alliance from a membership standpoint to make sure our members receive the best value if you wanted to take a National Alliance class through FAI.
Yeah, I mean, National Alliance is really kind of just another, arrow in the quiver for us as far as continuing education, our education department, and our offerings. I mean, National Alliance is second to none in their offerings, and we're proud to be the licensee. That has always been in-person training. Like, go to the classroom and you sit and you learn. So it was a challenge. I mean, we were fortunate that we, had a lot of resources here at the association that we'd been teaching this way, virtually for quite some time. And so our ramp up and transition for National Alliance probably wasn't as difficult as some of the other states. We were able to go live with virtual training almost immediately. And the response from licensees has been incredible. I mean, the number of students that we have seen in those classes over the last 12 months is really incredible. And again, we're proud to be the National Alliance licensee. It's a great program and set of designations, and it will be very interesting to see how things unfold over the next 6, 8, 12 months, and whether we're going to be back in person. But at the end of the day, I absolutely believe, many of those decisions are going to be dictated by our customers.
Exactly.
You all. And, if you all don't want to be back in person, and feel like you're getting, the same type education, same, quality education in a virtual setting, then that's kind of where we're going to be for quite some time, I think.
Yeah. So again, you mentioned this a little bit about our E&O, and certainly it's top notch, and have a great team over in the E&O department. Amanda and her team do a great job. Got a couple sales guys that are Kevin and JP are also part of that network over there. But market access is something that we certainly talk about a lot around here at FAI. But from your vantage point, we are working on some things and bringing some new partners and some new opportunities to our members. Can you share a little bit about some of that with us?
Yeah, I mean, that's an ongoing. So everybody knows us for E&O. They know Westport, and hopefully know that we can provide them any market that they need. If Westport's not the right market. But yeah, IMS, Independent Market Solutions, our market access platform that has, started with us, Louisiana and North Carolina, has since been expanded to 15 total states now participating in that program. That has meant that we're able to have conversations with companies, about providing access to members that we haven't in the past. We now have national contracts across that platform. We've got probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 companies that we're in talks with right now to continue to add to the offerings. Not all of them necessarily will all be available in Florida, but that's been a tremendous success. I mean, it really has, both for our members and for the association. I mean, it's attracted a lot of members, it's retained a lot of members, but it's also in the last 10 years provided about $90 million in commission revenue to our members through markets that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Yep. And so it's one of the things that I am very, very proud of. I can't take responsibility for it. That was something that, Jeff and several others, kind of started a long time ago, but it has become a very, very meaningful part of what we do. And we're always looking for new partners to be able to provide, our members the access that they need to various markets. It all started with the domestic homeowners market, right. But it has since expanded to, national contracts for carriers that include, basically all lines of business, commercial, BOP, commercial auto, it's work comp, all of those things are available through that market access platform. And we're going to continue to try to expand it to, have a larger menu of options here in Florida and all of the other states.
Folks, if you've not gone on the products and services tab of the website, certainly encourage you. As Kyle mentioned, we're adding things all the time. We're looking at new opportunities. So, every 30 to 60 days, we encourage you to get on there if you've missed, because we're announcing these things. But just in case, we're probably going to go over a few minutes. So just bear with us, because we certainly want to make sure we answer a couple questions. But, Kyle, we're using technology. You walked into the studio this morning, and we had Mike and Dan in here, and you said, I wonder if we ought to be using some different options for Friday Morning Live and some of the other offerings we do. And so we all wrote it down, and we'll certainly explore that. But, we're going through a transition here, like many of our members go through probably on a pretty regular basis, where we've transitioned our email exchange, and so technology is certainly another one of the items that you now have to, hone in on and understand a little bit more about what we're doing around here from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, by no means am I an IT expert. I am not. But what I am is someone who believes that technology can certainly help a business enterprise's efficiency. And, we have a big operation here with a lot of members. We've got an association management system. We've got an agency management system. We've got communications. We've got accounting, all of these things. And, much like you all, you sort of like pick the best of each of the vendors at any given point in time. And over time, you end up having a bunch of systems that may or may not talk to one another. And so one of the things that was really important to me and Paul Peoples and I had many conversations about it moving forward is, I wanted to position the association in a way that our entire technology stack, all of those things that I just described, the association management system, the agency management system, communications platform, accounting, everything else, talk to one another. And, it would give us a better feeling about the reports that we were generating, the data that we have, our ability to use that data intelligently to communicate with members the way that you all want to be communicated with, and just really know our entity and organization better. And so I got to give an awful lot of credit to our IT team. I mean, they have been busy. They would be busy with all of these initiatives in a normal year, but then add on top of that, remote work and all of the things that go along with that. They have done a phenomenal job, and hopefully, none of our members have seen, anything other than what they've come to expect from us as far as, registrations and interacting with our website and all of those sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, we've got some big initiatives that are going right now. We're in the process of implementing a transition to a Salesforce platform for our agency management system. We're moving to Varuna. And we just did, as you said, we did a transition or a migration to Office 365 that will now incorporate an awful lot of tools for us and be able to, at the end of the day, it's all about creating efficiency. There's going to be pain along the way, and there will be hiccups. But at the end of the day, I'm hopeful, and I truly believe that it will create for a more efficient workplace here for our team that will ultimately make for a better experience for our members.
Yep. Yeah, great point. So as we wind down, folks, you see some of the upcoming shows for the month of April. Certainly April 2nd, our friends from Oceanus, Frank and Susan, will be on. But at April 16th date, many of you are involved in trustedchoice.com. And so our friend Amy Davis wants to come on and really talk about that program and that platform. A lot of interest in Florida. So she wants to answer your questions. So I encourage you to register for that. But a couple questions, Kyle, and I think, Trey, Kyle kind of answered it. Over the next few weeks, there's going to be some direct mail pieces to help you as an agent educate your clients and have the resources about what's happening in the marketplace, so they better understand why some of the things that are going on in relation to rate and accessibility to the marketplace. But our friend Eric Kyle asked, a question that had to do with, unfortunately, and we see this all the time, not only is rate going up, but coverage is coming down. And so, some are going into Citizens because coverage disparity and availability, of course, it can be, more helpful to an agent that's trying to sell a customer on coverage, which we like to hear that. So, any comment on, as that continues to happen and Citizens becomes more of a viable option, what do we tell agents that say we want to keep these policies in the private market? That's where they should be, but yet we have this dynamic that's a shift that we're happening in the Florida marketplace where Citizens, because of their availability and increased coverage enhancements, how do we kind of guide agents through that process?
Yeah. So I'm glad we're ending on an easy one. This is right in line with the conversation that I have with members of the legislature, and that is, so it's always so focused. The debate here in Tallahassee is always so focused on rate. It's always about rate. Rates are going up. Rates are going up. Rates are going up. And while that is true, and that is, a bad thing for consumers, at the end of the day, it doesn't make it sustainable marketplace. But I remind them all the time is that while it's bad that rates are going up, what's most unfortunate in the current state of affairs, current situation, current marketplace, is that not only are rates going up, but coverage is going down. I mean, what the policy form looks like today versus what it looked like 10 years ago, I'm not telling, you all anything you don't know. I mean, and it's tough because, at the end of the day, the company has to protect, its surplus. I mean, it has to do exposure management that is largely dictated by, their reinsurance contracts and so forth. And, carriers have been able to get rate here recently. But there's only really two ways that you can handle it. You can either get rate or you can reduce coverage to reduce your exposure. And it's a fine line. Do we want to be in a position of telling companies that they can't, change their forms to reduce exposure, that they may never be able to get the rate that they need. And so without reducing that coverage or that exposure, then, there's a much higher likelihood that they go insolvent, and that's no good for anyone. I mean, it's the same conversation that we're having right now about ACV. Like, no one wants companies to have to go to ACV on roofs 10 years or older. No one wants that. We don't want that. But if that's something that at least provides some stability in the marketplace, then I think it's better to have a company that is operational and viable, that's offering some coverage rather than none.
Correct.
Where now you have really no choice but to go to Citizens. The Citizens part of it is really difficult because, consumers are going to be the ones that ultimately make that decision. And oftentimes people don't give consumers enough credit. Like, they're going to find where they can get the best coverage for the best price. And as companies are raising rates at double digits, and those are just statewide averages. I mean, there are some areas that are getting really high rate increases, while at the same time reducing coverage. Well, Citizens has this glide path thing. They're not allowed to raise rates more than 10% on statewide average, or any individual policy 10%, which, by the way, means that they're never going to get a 10% rate increase.
Correct.
So, as the voluntary market or private market continues to raise rates at the rate that they have to try to keep up with increased severity and frequency, and Citizens is capped, they may get 7 this year. Citizens is going to become far more competitive.
Yep.
And what choice does an agent have than to sit across the table from? I mean, it's the last thing anyone wants to do is write business in Citizens. Yet, for that customer, they're getting equal, if not better, coverage at a price that is more than 15% less than the private market. The business is going there. And, I'm not advocating for agents sending business to Citizens. What I'm saying is that's the reality, is that the business is going to find itself there. And that's not because an agent has an incentive to send it there. It's because the market is that bad. And that's the conversation that I recently had with the chairman of Citizens, talking about, this idea of not having agents sell business in Citizens because he feels like I think he sort of thinks that there's an incentive for agents to send business there. Well, no, Mr. Chairman, the policy count, as I said earlier, the policy count at Citizens is a direct reflection of the health of the underlying market. And so, at the end of the day, all you can do is continue to be, a trusted advisor to your customer. And there are going to be times where, because of the market, the way that it is, the best choice for them is Citizens.
Yeah. And certainly one of the comments is, we don't want to write, but sometimes it's painful, but that's the alternative we have to go with. But, and we say that around here a lot, if you need to park it there, park it there. Doesn't need to stay there indefinitely. And I think that's where some of us need to look at that. So, folks, thanks for attending today's Friday Morning Live. We're so happy to have Kyle in, take a few minutes of his time. You heard earlier, his time. In his time, he talks about just the association. Now he's part of one of 50 from state execs around the country. So that takes up also a little bit of his time in that larger group. So it's not just Florida, but certainly on a national basis. But we're happy you're a member of FAI. We encourage you to reach out to us on any issue that you have. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to write any of us here at FAI, follow the blogs, look for those mid-year report cards over the next few weeks. But again, thanks for attending Friday Morning Live, and we'll see you again on April the 2nd.